What if every student in the world had a personal tutor available 24/7 that never gets tired? With tools like GPT-4 and Khanmigo, AI is quietly becoming the biggest educational shift in human history. But are we ready for what comes next? Let's explore how AI could change not only how we learn, but why we learn. Welcome to the aesthetic revolution.
Welcome to the deep dive. We are plunging straight into something that feels less like current events and maybe more like science fiction happening in real time.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about the massive impact AI, specifically these large language models, are having.
And we'll continue to have, right, on education, creativity, and, well, just about everything.
Our source material today gives us a really good front row seat to this revolution. We've been digging into excerpts from a book by Salman Khan, the founder of Khan Academy.
Right, and he's been actively field testing some of the most advanced AI out there.
He has.
So our mission, really, is to cut through the noise, pull out the key insights, the big implications from these sources.
Basically give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on this incredibly fast-moving space.
Yeah, because it is moving fast.
It really does feel like stepping into that science fiction future we mentioned. Khan shares some amazing stories from early on, like the sheer surprise when his daughter Dia and him were co-writing a story with an AI character that actually talked back to them, like had a conversation.
Wow, that image sticks with you. Or that moment Bill Gates apparently challenged OpenAI, like, get GPT-4 to pass the AP biology exam.
And it did, which was, kind of a
Shock.
shock.
I built
Even earlier stuff like OpenAI reaching out to Khan Academy before ChatGPT was even public, these initial experiences, the source describes them as feeling pretty surreal.
like a glimpse into a future that just felt impossibly far away, maybe just a few years ago.
Totally.
So this future, it's powered by these large language models, LLMs. The source spends some time explaining what they are, maybe for those of us who follow this or those newer to the specifics. It helps ground us,
Yeah.
What are these LLMs?
Well, the source uses a pretty helpful analogy. Think about weather models.
Okay.
They simulate, like, atmospheric interactions to predict a hurricane, right?
Yeah.
Large language models. They're built on a similar idea, but they model associations between words.
So instead of air pressure and humidity, it's modeling how words and sentences, paragraphs, how they all fit together.
Exactly. And the power, as the source really emphasizes, comes from the sheer scale of the training data.
Right.
They're trained on just a colossal amount of text.
Yeah.
I mean, think reading far more books, articles, websites than any human could possibly process in, like, multiple lifetimes.
I remember the initial skepticism, though, about generative AI. Like, it could sound plausible, maybe even creative sometimes, but there was real doubt it had a proper handle on knowledge, or could reliably produce facts or reason logically.
Oh, that was a huge concern, absolutely. Many people, including Khan himself initially, were skeptical about its immediate use for complex stuff like education.
Because education needs accuracy,
Right.
understanding,
Yeah.
not just stuff that sounds right.
Precisely. Plausible-sounding text isn't enough.
And the source points to GPT-4 as, like, a real turning point. Why that one specifically?
Well, that was key because it showed capabilities that seemed to just leapfrog the previous versions, passing really hard exams like AP biology that impressed people like Bill Gates, who'd specifically tested it on things like that.
Right.
It felt like a tangible step towards something, resembling human-like intelligence.
And that kind of echoes the idea of the Turing test, doesn't it?
It does. The source touches on this. The Turing test is basically asking if a machine can fool a human judge into thinking it's human in conversation. Trying out GPT-4, it felt like it was really pushing those boundaries, maybe even crossing that threshold in some interactions, which, yeah, that felt like pure science fiction just before.
So if this tech can simulate human chat and handle complex knowledge, well, the potential impact on education is just immense.
Oh, yeah.
The source really zooms in on this idea of AI as a personalized tutor.
And this is where, the real revolution might lie, particularly for global education. That dream of a personal tutor for every single student.
Ugh.
That's been the historical bottleneck, right, for educational equity.
Because you just can't scale human tutors. Not to billions of students. It's impossible.
Exactly. The traditional model, batching 30, 40 kids in a classroom, that emerged at a necessity because one-on-one tutoring just wasn't scalable or affordable globally.
And the downside is students inevitably fall behind if they don't quite grasp something before the whole class moves on. Those gaps just widen.
Right. And Khan Academy, even with its huge library of videos and exercises, they recognized something was still missing.
Compared to that dynamic back and forth you get with a real human tutor.
That's right. The older tech, it lacked that dynamic conversation, that ability to truly understand and respond to a student's specific needs right in the moment.
So the goal with Khanmigo, as the source describes it, was different.
Yeah, it was to sort of invert the interaction. Instead of the student just asking the AI questions all the time, the AI would act more like a really good tutor, asking questions itself, using like a Socratic method to gently guide students towards the answer.
Without just giving it away.
Exactly. Which, as the source points out, is actually really hard, even for humans to do consistently well.
So what are some specific examples? How does Khanmigo actually do this tutoring?
Well, it can guide students through problems like step-by-step in math, nudging them instead of just telling them the answer.
Okay.
But the real power is that it's meant to work across any subject. History, chemistry, art, you name it.
Wow.
It gives dynamic, sort of context-specific encouragement. It can adjust in real time based on how a student is responding, their apparent motivation level.
Meeting them right at their learning edge, as they say.
Yes, or their zone of proximal development. It tries to mimic what a really good human tutor or maybe an engaged parent does.
Like helping them think critically, asking follow-ups.
Yeah, checking comprehension, suggesting the next best step based on like a memory of their progress.
The potential benefits then are just huge. Imagine every student everywhere having access to that kind of support 24/7.
It could fundamentally raise the floor for students globally, especially those with limited access to resources or human tutors.
Right.
And it also frees up human teachers, human tutors, to go deeper, focus on more complex ideas or emotional support maybe, once the AI handles the foundational guidance.
And importantly, students might feel way more comfortable asking the AI questions they'd be maybe embarrassed to ask a person?
That's a big point. Khan even wonders if this level of personalized interaction could potentially, exceed the effectiveness Benjamin Bloom found in his famous studies on human tutoring.
Wow. But education isn't just STEM subjects, right? How does AI engage students in things like social sciences or the humanities?
Okay, this is where the science fiction feeling really ramps up again. It's one of the most fascinating bits in the source, I think.
Yeah.
This innovative idea of having the AI take on the persona of historical figures or even significant documents.
Right, like having a conversation with Jay Gatsby? Seriously.
Exactly. The source shares this amazing example of a student talking to the AI, embodying Jay Gatsby from The Great Gatsby.
Nope.
Yeah, and the conversation apparently felt so natural. The AI captured the character so well that the student actually felt a moment of real empathy, like felt bad for taking up his time.
That's incredible.
And the AI even handled that gracefully, clarifying it was a simulation.
That just brings the book to life in a totally new dimension. What about actual historical figures, like the Harriet Tubman example mentioned?
That example's in there too, and it highlights some of the nuances, maybe some current limitations. The AI could stick to the historical context of her life, her experiences.
Okay.
But the language simulation was a challenge, like, should the AI use speech patterns that might sound kind of stilted to us now, but be more historically accurate?
Or risk using modern language which feels wrong.
Right. And the source also notes how the AI handled quotes that aren't definitively recorded in history. It attributed them, but didn't confirm them as absolutely said.
Which is a sign of its limits, maybe, but also a necessary guardrail. Not a hallucination, but being careful.
Exactly. That's a limitation, not a bug, in a sense.
It makes you think, though, these AI simulations, are they kind of like a modern version of historical reenactments? Or watching a movie like Lincoln, or seeing Hamilton?
That's a great parallel, actually. They offer these immersive, engaging ways to connect students with the past, with complex ideas.
Bringing historical figures and eras to life for a new generation.
Yeah, prompting maybe deeper connection, deeper understanding, even while you know it's a simulation or an interpretation.
Bringing things to life that leads us straight to creativity, because there was that initial fear, right? Going way back to Francis Ford Coppola's Zippy script idea decades ago. That AI could be a creativity killer. If AI can generate stories, images, music, whatever, how do kids develop their own imagination?
That fear is totally understandable. If an AI can churn out seemingly creative stuff, does it devalue human creativity? Does it stop kids from flexing their own imaginative muscles?
But the source pushes back on that, right? Drawing on people like Noam Chomsky.
Yes. The argument presented is that AI creativity, which is basically finding super complex correlations in massive data sets,
Okay.
is fundamentally different from human creativity, which involves, building internal models, explanations, and seems to work with much more efficient, maybe sparser data systems.
So the AI doesn't have like an inner life or subjective experience driving it.
Exactly. It doesn't possess a human-like internal imagination in that sense.
So instead of killing creativity, AI could actually be a partner in the creative process.
That's precisely how the sources position it, as a tool designed to augment human imagination and creativity.
Okay.
It can help promote passions, generate ideas in a totally non-judgmental space. And crucially, it needs student input.
Yeah.
It's meant to be about writing with the AI, partnering with it.
Not just asking it to write for you.
Right, that's the key distinction.
And it can lower the barrier to entry for exploring creative stuff, like the painting example in the source.
That's a great illustration. An AI assistant could offer inspiration for themes or styles, maybe give guidance on techniques, provide feedback on composition or color choices.
Even critique a drawing you upload.
Yeah, potentially. It can help someone who isn't, a master artist still engage really deeply with the creative process and actually learn the craft.
Now, with all this power, all this potential, there are obviously huge concerns. Bias, misinformation, keeping kids safe online. That stuff comes up immediately.
Absolutely. And the source acknowledges these are massive systemic issues, amplified, maybe in our current digital world, often fueled by algorithms designed more for engagement than accuracy.
And bias isn't new, right? AI didn't invent bias.
Not at all. Bias has existed for ages in things like hiring, assessments, even traditional media, where SEO could skew what info you see, or news outlets focused on fear or tribalism.
But the potential for AI bias, say in future hiring tools or ways we assess students, that's a real risk. Regulators are looking at it.
It is a real risk. The challenge, though, as framed by the source, isn't necessarily about achieving perfectly bias-free AI that might actually be impossible.
Right.
It's more about whether AI can be better or worse than our existing, often deeply subjective human systems.
And the argument is that AI bias, while definitely a risk we have to manage,
Could potentially be more transparent, more auditable than hidden human biases.
That's interesting. And the source also talks about AI's potential to actually combat misinformation. The flat Earth example was pretty striking.
It is. Good mainstream LLMs are being built with guardrails. They're designed not to generate harmful or false content.
So in that flat Earth example, the AI tutor doesn't just play along.
No, it doesn't entertain the hoax. It clearly states the overwhelming scientific consensus. It debunks the skeptical arguments with actual evidence, observations of Earth's curvature, satellite images, stuff like that.
And it points the user towards accurate info.
Exactly. It can act as kind of a bulwark against falling down those misinformation rabbit holes online.
What about just keeping kids safe online more generally? The internet's a minefield, sometimes inappropriate content, addiction risks.
Yeah, and current online filters are often really blunt tools, right? They block useful educational stuff sometimes, but still let problematic things slip through.
So the source introduces this concept of an AI acting like a guardian angel.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Like an assistant that navigates the internet with you.
Okay, how would that work?
An AI companion that filters content based not on maximizing clicks or engagement, but on your stated needs and goals.
So it provides context, helps manage screen time.
Exactly. Maximize the constructive screen time, minimize the non-constructive.
Prompting mindfulness about how you're using tech.
Yes, the source gives examples like the AI companion might notice you're spending hours watching endless Bollywood clips. Or maybe scrolling through emotionally tough stuff, like an ex's wedding photos online. And it could gently prompt reflection or suggest getting back to your work.
Or even just remind you to stretch if you've been researching for ages.
Yeah, simple things like that, promoting well-being alongside productivity.
And the data privacy issue for kids, that's huge for parents. A very valid concern.
It absolutely is. Parents worry, understandably, about AI platforms collecting and holding onto data about their children's interactions.
What does the source say about that?
It acknowledges the risk head-on, but it also notes that the major companies involved are very aware of this and are putting significant guardrails in place.
And it also makes the point that data privacy risks existed way before generative AI, right?
Exactly. The key isn't just about AI, it's ensuring incredibly high standards for data use and protection in any application kids use, AI or not.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the human roles in all this. teachers, parents, there was that initial fear, wasn't there, that AI might replace teachers?
That fear is understandable when you see what the tech can do.
Yeah.
But honestly, it feels particularly misplaced when you look at the reality on the ground.
Which is
A massive ongoing teacher shortage, teachers who are already completely overworked. So the source presents a very different vision. AI as a teacher's trusty wingman.
like an assistant to handle the less exciting parts of the job.
Precisely. AI can take on really time-consuming tasks.
Wow.
Lesson planning, maybe generating diverse examples for different students, perhaps even helping with initial grading.
Freeing up the teacher's most valuable resource.
Their time, their energy.
Hmm.
For direct interaction with students, for that human connection, the nuanced support that only they can provide.
Can you give some specific examples? How might AI actually assist a teacher day to day?
Well, the source mentions practical things, like asking the AI to explain a complex concept, say a p-value in statistics,
Okay.
in simpler terms, specifically tailored for like a ninth grade class, or generating lesson scripts, or customizing a lesson plan on the fly because something happened in the news where students are really into baseball.
So it could weave a baseball analogy into a World War II lesson.
Yeah, potentially. It could help teachers brainstorm creative project ideas for students too.
So the goal isn't AI replacing the teacher. It's AI helping the teacher steal the show, enhancing their art.
That's the core idea presented. It augments their capabilities. It gives them tools to be more effective, more creating in their teaching.
Letting them focus on the higher level stuff, inspiring kids, guiding them.
Exactly. The source even touches on future possibilities, like AI maybe facilitating group activities in class, or giving teachers real-time insights into which students seem engaged or who might need a bit more attention.
And how does AI support parents? What's the role there?
Well, AI can be a huge support for parents too, both maybe in that tutoring role we talked about and also as a kind of parenting coach.
Right, because tutoring your own kid, that can be stressful.
Oh yeah, it often leads to pressure, frustration, maybe even arguments because of the personal relationship.
So AI can step in as a neutral third party, infinitely patient.
Exactly, to provide that academic guidance without the emotional baggage. It also gives parents visibility into their child's learning.
So they can see progress, see where help is needed.
Yes, and it can offer ways the parent can provide motivational support without having to be the primary tutor themselves.
And beyond academics, you mentioned a coaching aspect.
Yeah, AI could offer guidance on life skills, maybe navigating social challenges like bullying, or providing resources that might normally require finding a therapist or reading stacks of self-help books.
Like the example of helping a parent motivate their daughter in math.
Exactly. Instead of just saying, make her do her homework, the AI suggested practical collaborative approaches, like involving the daughter in setting up the study routine, framing it as something they tackle together.
So the message is clear. AI provides tools. It strengthens the parent's ability to support their child.
But it absolutely does not replace that essential human role. Nurturing, instilling values, providing that holistic understanding of the world, that's still paramount.
It's presented more as a tool, a vector, maybe, for parents and kids to explore the world together.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, looking at the bigger system now, AI is clearly going to transform assessment, how we measure learning, and probably the future of work itself.
Yeah, the source definitely tackles this. It points out the significant drawbacks of traditional standardized testing.
Like?
Well, they're often narrow in focus. The results come back way too late to actually help adjust teaching now. They can have inherent biases, and they often lack transparency.
But some argue getting rid of them entirely could actually harm equity, right? By hiding achievement gaps we need to see.
That's the counterargument the source presents. Just ditching them might not be the answer either.
So how can generative AI change assessment, make it better?
By moving beyond just static multiple choice tests, moving towards richer, more dynamic, maybe conversation-based assessments,
How would that work?
AI could evaluate deeper understanding, critical thinking, problem solving, even creativity through dialogue, through simulations, maybe having students interact with AI personas related to the subject.
And potentially be more transparent than current methods.
Yes, the source suggests AI assessments could be designed to be more transparent and auditable. Stakeholders could potentially test them for bias and consistency more effectively than you can with subjective human grading or, those black box testing algorithms.
What about academic integrity? Cheating is a huge worry with AI writing essays.
It is, but the source points out, maybe provocatively, that this really just highlights pre-existing issues.
Like honor codes sometimes failing or essay mills already existing.
Exactly. Those problems weren't created by AI. However, AI might also offer some new solutions for transparency here.
How so?
Well, with platforms integrated into learning, like Khanmigo, the AI could potentially report how a student used it. It could show the process, demonstrate that the student partnered with the AI.
Rather than just asking it to write the whole thing.
Right. Showing the work, essentially, but in a new way.
And looking beyond school to the future of work. That saying is everywhere now, isn't it? You won't be replaced by AI, but by someone using AI.
There seems to be a lot of truth to that, according to the source. AI can massively boost productivity for many knowledge workers, writers, engineers, designers.
So the impact on jobs is complicated.
Very. Some tasks will likely get automated, yeah, but there might be an increased demand for humans who are augmented by these AI tools, who know how to leverage them effectively.
And we're already seeing new roles pop up, like prompt engineers.
Right, and a growing need for skills specifically around AI safety, AI security, mitigating bias in these systems. The source emphasizes this creates new opportunities, especially for engineers who can creatively apply this tech.
But there's that fascinating paradox, right? If AI can do a skill, why do I still need to learn it myself?
This is such a crucial point the source makes. The argument is you absolutely must still learn the underlying craft.
Whether it's writing, coding, design.
Whatever it is, you need that fundamental knowledge to understand what quality even looks like, to be able to effectively guide and steer the AI, and to focus your own human effort on the higher level stuff, the truly creative insights, the novel problem solving.
So AI might lower the barrier to production. Like making a film becomes easier, maybe.
Yeah, the source uses that filmmaking example.
But you still need to understand filmmaking fundamentals to make something good.
Exactly. You need the taste, the judgment, the vision. The AI is a powerful tool, but it needs a skilled operator.
What about college admissions? That relies so heavily on things like essays, recommendations, which are pretty subjective.
Yeah, the source notes how subjective that whole process can be. AI could potentially streamline parts of it.
How?
Maybe creating interactive candidate profiles, or even agent bots representing candidates that could converse with recruiter bots.
Whoa.
The idea is it could make the process faster, maybe more equitable, and crucially, more auditable for bias compared to the current subjective systems.
A big contrast to purely objective systems like, say, India's IIT entrance exam.
A very different approach, yeah.
So stepping back even further now, the potential of AI really connects back to the bigger picture, doesn't it? Particularly for global access and maybe even purpose.
Absolutely. It links straight back to the core mission of organizations like Khan Academy.
Which is providing free, world-class education to anyone, anywhere.
Exactly. And AI, especially as it becomes more accessible just via basic smartphones, that could be the missing piece.
Yeah.
The key to finally delivering truly personalized learning at scale globally.
Raising the floor for billions of students who currently have really limited access to quality education.
That's the hope. That's the potential.
The cost is still a barrier now, though, in many poorer countries. But the source sounds optimistic about that changing.
Very optimistic, expecting significant cost reductions factors of 10, maybe even 100 times cheaper over the next few years, potentially making it as affordable as existing basic web apps.
The source also shares some of the deep personal motivation behind this whole journey for Salcon, right? From being an AI researcher back in the AI winter.
Yeah, when funding dried up.
To going into finance, and then tutoring his cousin Nadia, which sparked the whole idea.
And ultimately building Khan Academy. It's clearly driven by this profound belief in the power of education to unlock human potential everywhere.
And the choice to be a nonprofit really underscores that.
Yeah, the value that access to fundamental things like education, like healthcare, shouldn't be limited by where you're born or your family's resources.
And that Isaac Asimov Foundation analogy he uses, that's a powerful vision.
It really is. This aspiration to build an institution using the most powerful technologies we have, first the internet, now AI, that can uplift humanity on like a centuries-long timescale.
Potentially making our current era look like a relative dark age in terms of access to knowledge and opportunity.
That's the grand vision.
But stepping into the science fiction future also means facing the very real dystopian potential. We have to acknowledge that.
Absolutely. You can't ignore the risks. This power could be harnessed for incredibly negative things.
Like fueling populism, spreading sophisticated deepfakes and misinformation on a scale we've never seen.
Or enabling pervasive surveillance that makes Orwell's 1984 look, I don't know, limited.
So it's this constant balance we have to navigate, this tension.
Generative AI is presented as this force of immense power.
Yeah.
It simultaneously creates these incredible opportunities, closing gaps, unlocking potential, empowering individuals.
And significant risks bias, misinformation, challenges to integrity, safety.
Yeah. And the source uses a great term for navigating this complexity: educated bravery.
Educated bravery. I like that. That feels like the perfect concept to land on. We've really deep dived today into just this vast potential.
Yeah.
AI as a personal tutor, a creative partner, a guide to history, a powerful assistant for teachers and parents, a transformer of assessment and hiring, and maybe, just maybe, a vehicle for global education equity.
And the core takeaway from these sources, again and again, seems to be that AI is fundamentally a tool. It's designed to augment human capabilities, human relationships, not replace them.
The future isn't AI taking over everything.
No, it's about people leveraging AI, using it to achieve more, learn more, create more.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener, to carry forward. Given this incredible power, this technology that can transform learning, creativity, how we interact with the world, how will you embrace that idea of educated bravery? How will you partner with AI to enhance your own potential, to navigate the future? What specific skill or maybe area of curiosity could you explore or deepen using an AI assistant, ensuring you're one of those using the tool rather than being left behind by it?